onto the stage. And Zafer is the Vice President for Mitsubishi Mitsubishi Electrics in Innovations. Zafer, good morning to you. Welcome to the session. And I'm going to leave the stage and look forward to your presentation.
Thank you, John. I'm happy to be a part of this event. Okay. So in my presentation, I will talk about innovation challenges and opportunities in a new world set by the COVID-19 pandemic. And particularly, I will cover the venture capital investment dollars, where those dollars are going, and what are the markets that are benefiting from those investments, and we expect them to grow faster than others. And then finally, I will talk about some useful practices to help us think differently to find innovation opportunities. Let's first have a brief look into venture capital investment dollars in 2020 and whether there was any surprise or not. So first, let's go back in time to 2008 and 2009. When the world financial crisis took place. We saw a huge spike in venture capital investment dollars in 2009. And those investments created the well-known companies today: Uber, Stripe, Airbnb, Instagram, Square, and WhatsApp. And these companies had one thing in common. They were making consumption of their target service lower cost. WhatsApp was making phone calls cheaper. Square and Stripe, they were making financial transactions cheaper. Airbnb was making accommodation cheaper, and Uber was taking a cab at lower cost. And will the history repeat in 2021 and afterwards? Will we have the same dynamics, or we will have different dynamics? Let's look at what happened in 2020. So when we look at 2020 in terms of deal values, total aggregate funding or investment in startups, 2020 was not any different from 2019. So there was no surprise. But when we look at the deal counts, we see a dramatically less number of deals in 2020. And particularly, angel seed and early VC investments suffered a lot. They took a big hit. But later VC investments did not suffer much, and indeed they continued to grow. Why do you think deal counts and investments in angel seed and early stage VCs suffered during the pandemic? Particularly startups seeking first-time venture financing, they were hit heavily. In 2020, startups, almost twice less startups were successful in finding first-time venture financings. And there are several reasons for it. First, these startups are trying to build a proof of concept and bringing the team together the first time, they struggled to get together and build even a proof of concept. And if you do not have something to show to investors, they would not be very interested in investing in your company. From the venture capital's point of view, if I invested in a company already prior to COVID-19, my interest would be to help those companies sustain and help them grow. So their focus and preference shifted towards helping their existing portfolio companies than finding new companies. And also COVID-19 pandemic created new needs and new markets. and venture capitals, even for early and seed stage, they preferred investing in startups addressing the new needs emerged due to the pandemic. And startups working in other markets suffered from this situation. And let's look at what kind of new markets and COVID-19 created, and what kind of existing markets COVID-19 pandemic helped grow faster. So on the radar screen, we see e-commerce, mobile delivery services, telehealth, electric vehicles, the electric vehicle charging infrastructure businesses, online education. And these markets have something in common as well. It's a reason why they are in the front line and growing faster than other markets. And fundamental technologies driving these businesses are AI, augmented reality, 5G, autonomous drones, and blockchain. And these technologies will continue to provide fuel for the growth of these markets. And let's deep dive into the underlying reason why these markets are growing faster than other markets. First, let me introduce a framework to you to understand how innovation works. So if you are a company and you have the best practice in your industry, it means you will be able to create value for your customers with the lowest cost, and nobody else can produce the same value at that very same cost or lower, which means at a given cost point here, the highest value creation point will be the frontier point, and a set of those points will form the innovation frontier curve. So as a company, I want to be someplace on that curve. I don't want to be in the interior of the curve. Being in the interior means I'm inefficient in my value creation or cost. In 2008 and later, companies focused on innovations that would lower cost to consumers. And we expect that the same thing will happen. If you are introducing a product or a solution or a service that will reduce the cost of consumption of something, then you have a chance. So you will win. And your innovation efforts will be successful, or will have more chance to be successful. So the goal is not to go up and create high-end luxurious products and services. The goal is to move to the right to come up with lower cost solutions and services, because we have a huge spike in the unemployment rate. So many people do not have even jobs, and their current focus is just the essentials to survive. They don't have enough money and income to spend on luxurious goods and services. Let's take healthcare as an example. How can we move to the right in a healthcare market? Reducing medical errors, using precision medicine, improving workflow efficiency, using telemedicine, early diagnosis, patient engagement and tracking solutions, reducing hospital readmissions, reducing recovery time of patients, reducing side effect risks. All these, if accomplished, will lower the cost of offering a service to patients. And particularly the ones in yellow will be the areas and solutions that AI can help. And I hope this framework is clear. So let's look at how to innovate, some useful practices that we can exercise to find innovation opportunities in these growing markets. The first suggestion is to observe user innovations. So what is a user innovation? So when you look at people and observe their behavior, are they using an existing product to do a different job? Or are they using a different product to do the same job? Or are they relying on a friend to do their job? So answers to these questions will be weak signals for user innovation. Sometimes these signals may be very rare, sometimes may be very frequent. When they are very frequent, it is easy to detect them. So large corporations typically tap onto user innovation and capture those signals and then turn those into commercial products and services. And the same thing happened in COVID-19. Many large corporations captured those user innovations that I showed pictures of, and they quickly created touchless elevators, elevator panels, touchless entrances, touchless payment systems, touchless traffic buttons. COVID-19 pandemic did teach large corporations how to be lean and more innovative in a shorter period. I think that was the biggest benefit to large corporations. They felt the pressure of creating in a time-sensitive manner. Something that took 2 years before to develop and launch, now companies can, with lean practices, can develop and launch in less than a year. The second practice, adopt market-oriented approaches, not marketing-oriented. Something being market-oriented means understanding your market, the demographics, the user, the market dynamics. Marketing-oriented approach is the opposite. You develop something first, and then you try to promote that to your target market without a good understanding of why people would buy it, how they would use it, and whether your solution would really address the pain points. I have one example. Let's pick the COVID-19 tracing apps. This is how those apps work. People download and install a tracing app on their smartphones. These smartphones transmit beacons with a unique ID periodically. And if your cell phone is within proximity of another cell phone of which the owner has COVID-19 infection, then your phone would alert. Now, I want to pause here and ask you to think about this application and whether it is a marketing-oriented solution or market-oriented. So most people think that this is marketing-oriented. This is market-oriented, but indeed it is marketing-oriented. It doesn't solve the problem because of the following reason. When we look at the USA, only 72% of the population have smartphones. 28% of people don't have a smartphone. In the UK, it's slightly better, but 88% of the people have smartphones. The remaining 12%, they don't. And we know that COVID pandemic started with one person. So we do not have a luxury to even miss one person to completely eliminate the spread of COVID-19. We need to be looking for solutions that would be easily accessible and available to everyone in the world, not only a small portion of the population. So what can we do? So currently, we are only relying on social distancing, which is 6 feet, not 6 meters here, it's a typo. We need to introduce supplemental solutions to tracing applications. And one supplemental solution can be to introduce a time domain-based approaches. I'll give you one particular example. Let's say you are calling an elevator. The elevator shaft arrives, the car arrives, and it's empty. Based on social distancing, if the elevator car is empty, you would take the ride. But maybe 5 seconds before you, there was somebody in that elevator car with COVID infection. So by introducing a time domain, we would create another safety zone for us. Maybe you should not take that elevator car that just arrived, but wait for a minute or two and take the next one. So that would reduce your infection risk. And there are many other supplemental solutions like that. Introducing the time domain is just one example. Let's look at the third suggestion to innovate efficiently. Seek the unique, not a better one. So how do we accomplish that? I will use e-commerce as an example. So when we look at e-commerce and what customers want, we see that they want free shipping. They want the ability to return in a store. They want to be able to pick up from a store. They want same-day delivery, same-hour delivery. And retailers and vendors are under pressure to satisfy these requirements. And when they do that, it spoils the online shoppers and they want more. That is good, but satisfying these requirements are creating monster challenges in the e-commerce industry. The first one is cost of returns. The second one is wasteful packaging and shipments. And the third one is fraudulent shopping and package thefts. These are all exponentially growing challenges in e-commerce. Let's look at the packaging problem. So FedEx and UPS type companies are charging their customers based on the dimensions of a box rather than the weight. And many times we receive very small items in very large boxes. That extra space is about 40% of what indeed it was supposed to be. So there's 40% void space on average in e-commerce packaging. So that creates 15% increase in cardboard use and 60% more material usage for void fillers. And this inefficiency in packaging increases transportation cost by 20%. So if we can eliminate these void space in packaging in e-commerce, we would save all these. So what would be the better solution to address these challenges? Perhaps a custom-sized box machine, right? A machine that makes a box on demand, real time, that matches the dimensions of the item you are shipping. The unique solution could be no tertiary packaging. Tertiary packaging is that the shipment package, the industry calls, the third package outside your item. So if we can completely eliminate that shipment package, it would save the environment a lot. Is that possible or not? That's a different question, but if there is a solution, that would be a unique solution. Let's look at the returns logistics cost. In the US alone, 3 billion packages are returned every year. And these items that are returned have no damage or defect. And cost of handling those returns is in total $65 billion, not including the value of the items. It is just the logistics cost. And to decarbonize the impact of managing these returns would require 1 billion trees annually. That is huge. So what would be the better approach, better innovation to deal with the cost of returns? Maybe more stringent return policies, which is a business model innovation, not a technology innovation. A potential unique approach would be minimizing likelihood of returns, perhaps using augmented reality and sensing systems for in-store, at-home, and mobile applications that would measure customers' body dimensions, and then the system would make sure that what they are purchasing would fit them. And on average, 30% of the returns reason is size mismatch. These technologies would provide 30% improvement in those costs. Another useful practice to innovate is paying attention to details. And I'm going to use 5G as an example. So almost most of us think that 5G will come and it will be a much better world. But 5G has 3 different bands, 3 different flavors: the low band, the mid band, and the high band. And some of you may be already familiar with these. But I kind of picked some key features of these different band implementations of 5G, and particularly the high band. What is being deployed today is the low band and the mid band. The high band is costly, and it will probably take 2 or 3 more years to see the high band applications. The coverage is just several hundred meters. It's tens of orders of magnitude less than the mid band and low band. And high band offers gigabits per second data rates, but it has poor indoor coverage. And also, we will pay for these services. They are not free, like Wi-Fi. So given that high-level information, do you see any opportunity here? Let's look at the 5G high-band challenges. Poor indoor connectivity, dense space station deployment. Because the communication range is very short, we need to deploy base stations very densely, and that increases the infrastructure cost. So therefore, the preference for 5G high band implementation will be metropolitan areas, not suburbs. So there will be poor or no coverage in suburb areas for many years to come. And some communities and researchers are also concerned about the health impacts of 5G. So there are some issues, and solution to those issues would have a potential to be a big business. How can we deal with poor indoor connectivity? One example, we can use 5G relay devices, which would be the better solution. I think there are many companies working on developing 5G relay devices right now. Another one would be maybe a unique solution, construction metamaterials. So we know from the physics that metamaterials have a property to direct and bend light and radio waves. So by developing a metamaterial in the form of a shield that you can tape on your window and glasses, perhaps we can consolidate and concentrate radio waves into a certain direction to increase coverage. It's just one idea. For health impacts, perhaps we can build an RF exposure, 5G high-band RF exposure tracing apps to make people comfortable about how much they are exposed to 5G radio waves. Some ideas. In later lectures, we can go into details of these, but in the interest of time, I'm just touching the surface today. So, near the end of my presentation, I want to tell you about a mega opportunity. So, in my view, one mega opportunity is with the exponential growth of data. Annual size of the global data storage would reach 175 zettabytes by 2025. that is 175 times 1 trillion times gigabytes. And main creators of that data in our world is IoT systems, personal devices, and online platforms. And currently, we are storing this generated data on the cloud. It's centralized storage. Yes, there are some availability zones and different regions to add redundancy in case of one data center goes down. You will have the second data center, but the storage is centralized today. So the opportunities in making that centralized storage, turning it into a decentralized storage. And there are some companies like Filecoin and Coin and several others that are already launching a decentralized storage solution, and their solutions are blockchain based. So they take a file, they fragment a given file into 1,000 pieces, and each piece is encrypted and stored in a different location in the world. And it will be almost impossible for a malicious user to access all these individual fragments and then bring them together and reconstruct the original file. So this decentralized storage solution will be very low cost and high security. And enabling technologies will be artificial intelligence, 5G, and blockchain. And I see that autonomous vehicles, for example, have very powerful computing and storage resources. And when I compared the computers autonomous vehicles are using today and electric vehicles are using today, they are at parity with the mining computers the blockchain miners are using. So in the future, our autonomous vehicles will have sufficient power and resources to be one of the decentralized network points, and they would probably make money when they are parked. They would be decrypting data and communicating data with other nodes. So I want to close with key takeaways in my presentation. The first one, low cost will be the new value proposition to consumers. As a society, we should innovate to produce and consume responsibly. Artificial intelligence, blockchain, 5G, and augmented reality will play critical roles in the next coming years. Thank you very much.
Before I start, I think, that's just amazing, Zafer. I mean, you've shown a light on an area which is just very, very interesting. The fact that how the capital venture companies have been very sort of selective in what they're going to be doing and how they're going to be focusing in on where the investments are going to go. The kind of questions that I wanted to ask you very quickly, and if you've really got very short answers, I'd appreciate that. The kind of things I wanted to know, I appreciate your presentation has been very tech focused in terms of innovation, and that's all for the right reasons. But if I flip on the other side and ask the question in reverse, is how can we innovate without technology? What kind of things can we do? If we didn't have technology, how would we be innovating? What can the ordinary person watching this around the 30 countries around the world, what can they be doing in their ordinary lives to innovate at their own levels if they haven't got access to all the technologies?
I think we should work on our mental models. So mental models are habits that we are not aware of, but we automatically, with our mindset, we perform those actions. And sometimes our mental models and habits create inefficiencies. And every one of us should consider themselves as a change agent. And if we see some kind of an inefficiency that a person is performing, we should warn that person and try to convert that person to be a change agent. And I think that is the bare minimum.
Okay, well, that's really helpful. I'm not going to pause too many more questions. I've got a list of questions, but I'm going to talk to you separately about those. I'm just going to quickly run the comments through what people have been saying. And Jennifer's made a good point, which is to say that not just cheaper, but more convenient in terms of access to services. So this was your first part of the presentation when you're talking about all the services and how they've all got cheaper with regards to transactional services that we've been looking at through there. And Jennifer's also made another point around, I mean, this is quite common now, it seems. If an item is of under certain value, retailers just say, just keep it. If you're trying to return it, they just say, just keep it, because it's just not worth returning it back, because the cost of that's going to be greater than, you know, the low value item that you've got.
That kind of policy is also promoting gaming the system. If the retailer always tells me to keep it, I will buy and want to return it because they will ask me to keep it.
Exactly. And Julia is asking the question, how do we increase the awareness of customers regarding waste and return purchases and the impact and side effects that you've already just mentioned in your presentation? How do we go for the other side and get the customers to become more aware of what they're doing?
I think that the solution is to increase their awareness. If I'm aware of the consequences of my actions and the environmental impact and the sustainability impact, and that information is available to me anytime, anywhere. So it will be like a self-check mechanism.
Okay, that's really good. I'm just going to pause straight away there. Zaifa, I'm going to give you a virtual clap, even though there's only one clap, but please think there's 100,000 people around the world applauding this.
It was a pleasure, John. Yeah, thank you.